Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And you may recall it was 5 days ago that myself, Billy Broussard, and a number of other folk went and testified with regard to Heather Cloud's bill to restrict public records. And Billy Broussard provided testimony, and his video has in fact been viewed more than any other. And a lot of folks have wondered, what in the world is he talking about when he alludes to this massive cover-up that he said is a cover-up like none he'd ever seen in his life. So we're devoting today's feature to let Billy give an overview. We've got a ton of material here. He'll pick and choose and indicate, you know, because he put a lot of documents at that table. Some people may have wondered, well, what's in those documents? So, Billy, why don't you take the floor?
Well, again, we're doing this so especially the people, the flood victims in Moss Bluff and Calcasieu Parish. Everybody knows Hurricane Rita hit in 2005. Well, there was a bayou that was heavily congested after the flood. Everybody may remember a year after Hurricane Rita. What's important about this particular project that I was on and what I was speaking to the committee about was in 2006. 2005, the hurricane hit. 2006, there's documents to support 600 people in Moss Bluff flooded.
Okay.
Well, again, I was a contractor working on that project, and I talked to constituents and said, they said, you know, why are you doing this project? It's because of this major flood. So I'm going to go by real fast in chronological order, kind of what happened. So the Drainage District reaches out to the proper authorities, FEMA's, you know, different government agencies, and they assist, and they did a survey with the Drainage District about what was in the bayou. They put together what's very simple, a map, very detailed scope of work, what they call calculation sheets. The map, I have another one that's on the wall, that just to say, this is something FEMA puts together to make it very easy for everyone to understand what this project pertains to. Anybody that's bidding on it, anybody that's this is in their grant. So bottom line, you have the map. I'm gonna try to see if you can make this as an attachment. That way the flood victims, I would like for them to be able to maybe get the map, they can print it and then look at it. What did FEMA originally obligate as eligible and document what was there, which is very interesting. They'll put like multiple trees across bayou, a GPS coordinates, 3 trees in that area, the diameter 24 inch, each tree 7.2 cubic yards, then the total 21.6 cubic yards of the 3 trees. So this is a very, very detailed scope of work. So they put it out to bid. We bid the project, we got the project, we bid the project for a lump sum of money, a lump sum project for a very detailed scope of work. In that, there's this paragraph that FEMA puts in their, you know, projects that, and especially this project, they said, hey, the bottom line, the bayou is very congested. We can only get to certain areas. Bottom line, if the Drainage District, the applicant, finds that there's additional debris beyond what we have found, it's the responsibility of the applicant, which was the Drainage District, Gravity Drainage District 8 of Ward 1, and with the parish. They're to come back to FEMA and the state, GOSAP, to get a, they worded a version to their PW. We had a meeting not long ago with the previous director of GOSAP, Kevin Davis. He said it's another word for change order. Okay. But they get a version. So bottom line, during that time, though, it was argued, well, what is the scope of work? Well, I ended up getting an email from everybody from this area in Calcasieu knows the name probably. Well, first of all, their district attorney, John DeRozier. But he had, from what I understand, a first assistant named Robert Kleinsmith. Robert Kleinsmith helped the Drainage District. He represented them. So the district attorney's office represents the Drainage District. So he helped them put this contract together. All right. So when the board members were starting to have issues, you know, wanting to know, okay, what are we supposed to do at this point? Kleinsmith, I got a very good email that Kleinsmith says, personally, I'd like to see the contractor fulfill the contract. The contract is to deliver 950 cubic yards of material for the price. Of course, we would have to pay a consultant to verify the amount of eligible material. Once the material is delivered, shut down the contract. However, if the board feels it can no longer proceed with the contractor, I would make sure that the contractor and the district is both in agreement on a let-out price. On top of that, the first part of the email, he says, first and foremost, before any action, get FEMA approval. You know, from FEMA, you know, these guys are paying the bill. So, but he, you know, hey, make sure whatever you do, about the best advice an attorney can give, and that was the best advice.
Yes.
Is make sure FEMA's on board with whatever you're doing.
Yes.
And he makes it clear. There was some litigation, and everybody said, well, everybody knew. The Drainage District's attorney at that time, they didn't want to listen to what Klein Smith told them.
Okay.
So instead of just going with the district attorneys, which is a free attorney, from what I understand, they have, by statute, they have to represent the government body. Well, they didn't want to listen to Klein Smith. Because Klein Smith says, make sure FEMA's on board, and your contract that we put together is for 950 cubic yards. They didn't want to listen to him, apparently, so they hired outside counsel Rusty Stutes.
Rusty Stutes, okay.
Rusty Stutes. So, in saying that, they made a formal request. They made emails based upon FAR statute. They made a formal request. It's very simple. They took our contract. They went to FEMA. FEMA approved additional money. Now, I will back up. The litigation, they claim, oh, we went to FEMA. It's throughout the documents. We went to FEMA. We got additional money. But that additional money had nothing to do with Mr. Broussard. That was the work that we done. And I will say, I'll take a moment and let you read. We never got the judge's opinion. When it's my understanding that when you're going to appeal something, you got to get the judge's. You
got to get written reasons for the ruling.
So the closest thing I can get for written reason is I'm going to let you read.
I'll do that at this time. This is Judge Ritchie. He says, well, I guess, it does concern me, though, that I just, because if there would have been somebody that would have said that there was something, even though the overwhelming documentation in the record shows that, well, the problem is this is different from everything else that I have seen. Everything else that I have seen about my agreement to pay anything over other than $204,000. Everything has been consistent throughout, and that's why I came to the conclusions that I did, that there was no genuine issues of material fact, and I granted the motion for summary judgment.
So everybody would, I believe, agree that that was the judge's reasons for ruling.
This is probably as close as we're going to get.
Right, because he says, hey, the contract, it was $204,000 for this work, period. So I remember at one point he said, it doesn't matter what the scope of work was, there was only $204,000. But there was documents withheld. And
I want you to slow that down. There were documents withheld.
Correct.
I want to make you flew that sort of fast. I wanted to slow it down. And documents were withheld
during discovery.
Gotcha.
And so my attorneys at the time, which interesting, one of my attorneys who is now the governor, Jeff Landry. I go to Jeff Landry as an attorney and I said, okay, I have this case. They take the case. He goes, says, he looks at it, says, all right, fine. We have to file a lien. You're a subcontractor on this project. You're working with this contractor on this. The proper steps, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to file a lien. So they file a lien. And, he's filing a lien based upon the documents I'm providing him. And a lot of it is me telling him what happened, what transpired. So he files a lien, and so the lien there, he files a lien for the amount of work, the additional work that was ordered to be removed.
Okay.
So, and even though it was litigated, and you're just seeing where the judge said, oh no, there was only $204,000. In that, back to the documents. Then the lawsuit starts, etc. So he asked through discovery, give us all this evidence, because what my attorney, then Jeff Landry, wanted to do is get to the bottom of it. We're just simple, guys. What's the scope of work? This is the easiest way to figure this out. What amount of money was supposed to pay for what work? What was my client supposed to do for that amount of money? And I told him that, look, at a certain point, they went back to FEMA based upon the contract and based upon the FAR statute, etc., and got additional money. And they were telling me, people asked the question, well, why did you do this additional work? Well, I did that because you're given monitors. These projects, you don't just go out there and do whatever you want.
Right.
Here's one. I kind of had it blown up, but I don't know which one's easier. On this particular project, GOSAP had their contractor. The gentleman, his name was Kurt Harmon.
I remember that well.
Governor's Office of Homeland Security. This was a business card. This is a copy of a business card that I blown up. Got the Louisiana seal. I mean, this guy says, I'm GOSAP. So
yeah, I want to get it.
He's introduced to us as.
There's a contact phone number. There is an email account on there, and it does have the state of Louisiana seal. So you had no reason to believe that you couldn't take anything he said as being representative of GOSAP, because it says on there,
right.
Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, for which the acronym GOSAP applies.
Exactly.
You continue.
So in that, I have and in my contract, it says the final determination will be made by the government representative. So I have two monitors. You have the parish monitor and you have the GOSAP monitor. But the GOSAP monitor, there's other documents in the FEMA in here. It says that both monitors were present for the purpose of ensuring that only eligible debris was removed by the contractor, and this goal was accomplished. So you want to know, well, why are these guys out there? Their goal is to ensure that only eligible debris is removed, and that's what they reported to FEMA. Only eligible debris was removed, meaning that debris had to be caused by Hurricane Rita. We have the original assessment, which FEMA says there's a total of 67 GPS sites and 950 estimate of 950 cubic yards of debris. But yet it did grow, because when we got started, it wasn't long after we got started, this same monitor starts marking himself. He's out there with his GPS coordinates deal, and he's marking these additional sites that we're removing. So we're taking their orders. They're running the project. We go out there. He starts marking these additional sites. There's emails between him and another gentleman he works with named Billy Crabb.
Okay.
And so in that, you might say, in some of these emails that you might look at and say, wait a minute, these guys may not be GOSAP. They may be a contractor of GOSAP.
All right.
So, excuse me. Okay, as I was saying, we had two monitors. We had the GOSAP monitor and we had the Drainage District monitor. The good thing about, we never got a deposition from the GOSAP monitor. I have a lot of his notes, his daily notes, where he's saying, and I'm documenting these additional sites, these sites that are not in the scope of work, meaning they're not in the PW. This is something that the Drainage District, Mike Higdon, the Drainage District monitor was given. These little floaty things that you put on the side of the pool, they cut them in about 18-inch sections, gave him some string, a little piece of rebar on the bottom, and what he would do is he would go, in his deposition you'll see, he went with a pole, go down the bayou, finding the logs.
Okay.
When he find them below the water in the sediment, he would set out this little floaty.
Okay.
So the barge would already pass, and he'd go behind us, and he'd find it. And he'd say, turn around, come back. And he'd have a row of this.
So when you saw those, that was an indication to you, I need to go down and remove.
You're gonna have to go down there and find the logs.
Gotcha.
And in that, again, this is a project that was supposed to only be cleaning up Hurricane Rita debris.
Gotcha.
Nothing else. Nothing else would be eligible. If it had to be Rita debris, and on top of that, it wasn't eligible until FEMA says it was eligible.
Okay.
It says it's eligible. So that was our parish monitor, marking with these sites. And there's rules that go along with monitoring. I mean, there's debris monitoring rules that, and here's some, like in the daily notes of Mike Higdon, just to say I have his daily notes, where those additional GPS sites that they started marking, he would document also. He was in the boat. You have to, and we have a video of that, and there was a police report done where the parish monitor, he says, well, my job was to go get the GOSAP monitor and bring him up and down the bayou as we did this project, because the GOSAP monitor is the one running the project. That's what, in his own, statements he made to state police. So in saying that, people ask me, Billy, why did you pick up the debris that you picked up? You have to understand, as a contractor, and it says in the contract, the final determination will be made by the government representatives.
Yes.
So the other thing is that you can't just go out there and pick up whatever debris you want. Every day you have the, just to say
you're being supervised. You may be your own boss by way of you own the company or this, but you are directly working under the orders of someone who's telling you, pick this up.
Right, exactly. So anybody that's ever done debris cleanup after the storms, they know they give you these monitors, state monitors, FEMA monitors, Corps monitors, whatever they are, and whoever they work for, but yet you can't just go out there doing whatever you want and think you're just going to send them the bill. They run the show. They order, and I have, I mean, they very well document that hey, they're running the show. It's very well documented.
Yes.
So there's no debris that I'm picking up that wasn't directed by them. So everything that they're ordering for me to pick up, I have to assume that in good faith that this was eligible and approved by FEMA and the GOSAP people, that it's eligible debris. Because I can't make that determination.
You have no authority to make that determination.
No authority to make the determination. From what I've been told, the only person that can make that determination is FEMA. A judge can't make that determination. A judge can't look at this, even look at this case. Well, I'm going to say that was hurricane debris, eligible debris. They can't. The only person that can say what's eligible is FEMA. But they're telling me, hey, I don't have a relationship with FEMA where I'm talking to FEMA. These monitors do. They're the ones that go. They're going back and forth with FEMA, saying this is what we're determining as eligible. So all this work that's being picked up is all being directed by these monitors.
Yes.
And like I said, the lien was filed. We go through the litigation, and they said the only money is $204,000. There's no other money besides the $204,000. And
that's reflective of what we just read.
What you just read.
Yes.
And I remember Rusty too saying, have Mr. Broussard show us anywhere that there was any more money than 204. And as you remember, I started, the case was litigated, it was over.
By way of a motion for summary judgment.
Exactly, motion for summary judgment. And so it's over. The contract was, they didn't really say exactly, he just said, and another party said, I'm going to say this for all the hurricane debris, meaning apparently eligible debris. But he said 204,000. That's the main thing, the money. So I started doing public records requests. So I testified that last week. I started doing public records requests, and like I said, my attorney at the time, they through discovery could not get their hands on these documents. Okay. Because the judge said that everything supported that there was only $204,000. That's it. So the thing is I wasn't able to get my hands on what you may call the deliberative process.
Well, yeah, and I remember when we first started all of this, because we've done a number of features with you, but when I saw the totality of all the material you had that made up the composition of Senator Fred Mills's letter, my inquiry of you then was, Billy, how in the hell could y'all lose this case?
Exactly, and then I'll have to defend my now governor and attorneys that they asked for this information. They asked for it during discovery. And the thing is, they were not able to get their hands on. We were not. I mean, the judge said, well, I haven't seen anything. So all it was my testimony saying that this is what transpired, that there was a request. They kept telling the judge, Your Honor, we went to FEMA. Even GOSAP's attorney produced an affidavit.
Yes.
I'm just going to leave it that it was used in the courts, in their motion of summary judgment, and led the court to believe, hey, there wasn't a request, and if there would have been a request for that amount of money, it would have never been approved. So, just to say, through persistent getting these public records, that I got through the public records requests, Senator Mills being so kind to have GOSAP continue coming to the table saying, look, there's more to this.
There is, yeah.
Something, it stinks. So eventually, I have to say, Kevin Davis, including Mark DeBosier.
Now, Kevin Davis, most people won't know who he is, so he is the former. Go ahead.
Yes, he was the head of GOSAP at a certain point.
During the period that...
Not while the project was being done, but during the period I started getting all these documents and things weren't adding up, and my senator's going, something's not right. Okay. So I'm having, he's helping me to have these meetings with GOSAP, especially at the beginning with Mark DeBosier, because Mark DeBosier is the one that signed off on this project. Mark DeBosier was the one that signed off on behalf of GOSAP to the feds that practically all this work, everything's legit. All the work was eligible, etc.
All right. Now, Mark DeBosier, that would be the same one that said that you got a recording of that said he could get or bragged of the fact that the legislative auditor would put their fingers in their ears, close their eyes, and he'd make sure there were no fingerprints on it?
That is true. I will say, in regard, Mark DeBosier, I believe, after he knew Senator Mills and me weren't going anywhere, I truly believe, even though he signed off on it and he knew a little bit that things weren't adding up correctly, but like he said, hey Billy, if certain people sign off that's where that work is done, I will ask you were in one of the meetings.
Yes.
If you don't mind, you have a good memory for the audience. Would you say what happened when we had the meeting and who was involved in the meeting at the legislative auditor's office?
Well, there were several people. Now,
the one where just me, you,
and Darryl
Papera, and Mr.
Moorhead. Yes. Well, I interjected that. For those of you who may not know, I am an inactive CPA. And in the early weeks of auditing, my professor back then was Dr. Rich White. I still remember him. And he said, look, we're going to be talking throughout this course, a 15-week course, about effective internal controls. But I need to make sure every student in this class understands one thing. I don't care how effective the system of internal controls that you put in place. There is one thing that even the best system of internal controls is never going to be able to overcome, and that is collusion. Because internal controls are all based on, I'm checking up on Billy, who has this responsibility, and he's checking up on Sue, who has this responsibility, to where it would require collusion to pull off a fraud. And that's why he said that, is that if you've got collusion going on, even the best system is going to fail to nip it in the bud. And I think that we have shown through some emails that have been published that there was collusion going on here. And I made that point, and Darryl Papera said, you're correct. If that is going on, we're only examining documentation on the back end, and we're not going to catch that. He also candidly admitted that there was no one from the legislative auditor's office who was going out to make physical inspections themselves. There was also a point where John Moorhead said that, look, everything had to be FEMA eligible, otherwise Dan Kennedy would not have signed off on this.
Right. And all the work was done at
those GPS sites, which you have emphatically urged that was not done at those GPS sites. And you made the statement, and I was there to witness it, that you said, quote, I was on this project virtually every day of it, and I have yet to meet Dan Kennedy. So those are the highlights from the meetings. Lasted considerably longer, but those are some of the highlights.
Bottom line, how you're not going to catch it. How you have all these checks and balances. FEMA sends this money down through GOSAP. GOSAP has all these contractors. You have legislative auditor that's embedded in GOSAP's office. You have all these people, all these checks and balances to ensure, all these safety measures to ensure, like I said, only eligible debris is being removed. How did they clean and dredge from Burns, just to say from the area I done was from Burnside 3 north all the way. And in these areas, especially from Burnside 2 going north, the water was, for the people that flooded. Burnside 3, the bayou's real wide down here. So since it's so wide, FEMA in their PW, there's a beginning and end to this project. FEMA says, okay, we're going to start it right here, because after that, the bayou's so wide, any trees in the bayou are not going to cause flooding.
Okay, all right.
So bottom line, they mark all these sites. The water is also deep up to this point. So bottom line, that's not where a lot of the logs that were deep in the, just to say in the water, in the sediment, were being removed.
Okay.
Because the bayous, anybody that goes fishing, anybody that lives out there in Moss Bluff, you go fishing down this bayou, just to say, the water is going to be deeper. Now from Burnside 2 going north, the water's not that deep any longer.
Okay.
And in all the bends of the bayou, they told you the reason you flooded was because of Hurricane Rita debris. From Burnside 2 going north, the bends in the bayou, the logs were like just stacked.
All right.
Because the logs would go down the bayou, there would be a wide bend, the logs would make that bend, the next sharp bend, it would just be stacked.
Jammed,
And this bend in the bayou would be real deep right here. It looks like you can dive, but you really can't. You can walk, you can just to say walk across the water, you know, it's only just to say waist deep, but it's full of logs, and the sediment where it's deep here, the water, the current would take all that sediment and stack it on top of those logs. So from what I've been told, and when we asked them about, hey, what was the conditions of the bayou before the hurricane, all they can tell us was it was flown in a plane. Now this is a gravity drainage district that has boats. They flew it in a plane, and another time they rode it by horseback. Now, anybody that lives in that area, try to ride down the bayou, go down that bayou on horseback. It's rolling hills, etc. And it is wetland also. In the way there's certain areas it's considered wetland. You're not just going to easily ride a horse down there. So, and on top of that, why would you fly in a plane when you have boats?
Yes.
The problem is that they apparently never maintained the waterway.
Okay.
They just never maintained it, and Hurricane Rita hit, and I have to say, I met with an attorney from there, Smith. It's my understanding that there was a class action lawsuit they were working on. You know, people were like, why did we flood? You know, we were not in flood zones. I've talked to different people, said they lost everything they had. They weren't in a flood zone. Smith said, Maurice Tynes sat in some of the depositions. And me and him had a conversation. He said, you have to understand, Billy, if FEMA says this is what was eligible on the work that was done on this project, just to say, if they say, well, look, it's only 950 cubic yards. If y'all remove 10 times as much as that, that was debris that wasn't eligible. What they say is caused by Hurricane Rita. So what Tynes was telling me was, Maurice Tynes, was that what's the percentage of liability? What part of it can you blame on Hurricane Rita, and what part of it is just neglect from the drainage district? These people want answers why they flooded. So, and a lot of these people, like I said, weren't in a flood zone, but yet they're flooding. So this bayou was not just Hurricane Rita debris. It had been congested for ages. So after hurricane hits in 2005, knocks down X amount of trees. But if the bayou is jammed from the bottom up, and then trees cross the bayou, especially in an area where it's not that wide anymore, then at that point it just dams. There's no bayou at that point because there's a dam. I mean, how you stop water from flowing? You build dams. Well, they were just dams built with logs from the bottom up. So the trees that fell for Hurricane Rita just took it over the top. But what Tynes was saying was, okay, it's just like any incident where lawyers want to get to the bottom of what percentage of liability. How much of this can you really blame on an act of God and nature? So in that, we never could find where they ever maintained the waterway. So in saying that, the people that flooded, they were always just given the response that you flooded because of Hurricane Rita debris. There was an article also that came out where a year, so many months after the project was finished, it says Indian Bayou project improves drainage. They had a rain coming. It was the 2000. This article was August 12, 2009. So they went to the drainage district, talked to John Leon, and said, because everybody's sweating, they got a big rain coming. Everybody wants to say, this is the big test of time. The work that was done on Indian Bayou, is that scope of work going to, whatever happened, is it going to, has it fixed our drainage problems? And after the big rain, everybody's cheering, going, hey, it worked. No flooding. It worked, draining very well. But he puts in there that this bayou, this project, it contributed to a major, not just Moss Bluff, but Moss Bluff, Gillis area, and another area there. So it's a big drainage lateral that drains a lot of people. Like I said, they said 600 people flooded after that 2006 flood
event.
So in that, he puts in here that they got a contract, they removed the debris, but again, he puts in there Hurricane Rita debris. He's one there, he wants to continue saying, oh, it was all Hurricane Rita debris, because I truly believe they didn't want the public to know what really happened, because when you clean up behind a disaster, you're going to find out what really caused the disaster in the first place. They said act of nature, big rain. Then it was, the trees that blocked it was caused by Hurricane Rita. And I will say, for the people there, all this information, there was a police report that was done. That was original police report was done. After meetings through Senator Mills, GOSAP, etc., we learned a lot. So Senator Mills, Kevin Davis, the director of GOSAP at the time, I said, look, I want you to come with me to the district attorney's office, because they put a restraining order on me that I couldn't get the public records any longer, that I was building a case, not just for me to get paid, but to show what actually happened on that bayou. Well, the judge said, well, how about the district attorney? He said, talk to the district attorney all you want. So I talked to Kevin Davis, the director of GOSAP at the time. So they came with me to the district attorney's office. And
John DeRozier.
John DeRozier. So we have it all scheduled. I mean, this is the head at GOSAP.
Kevin Davis.
Mark DeBosier, Ben Ply is there, their attorney, another gentleman, Mr. Smith. We're all there. And in scheduling that meeting, state police is going to be there in that meeting. Because
and that would have been Michael Hebert.
Michael Hebert, who ran for sheriff twice.
I understand. You've done a few features on him.
Ran for sheriff twice in Cameron. But he was the lead detective on this. He was to be in the meeting. He has the meeting. Kevin Davis says, look, this is the deal. For the life of me, I don't know why y'all don't just come to the table. We can address this and fix this. And he said, also, y'all came to the table. And at that point, came to the table throughout the litigation. He said, well, we went to the table, but it had nothing to do with Mr. Broussard. He said, y'all came to the table. You asked for additional money. We got you additional money for additional contract work. And that number, if you remember right, that 204, you just read that the judge said that was the reason for
for him granting the motion for summary judgment.
Again, we know who Mark DeBosier is. He's the deputy director of GOSAP that signed off on this project. Well, Kevin Davis apparently asked Mark DeBosier to do a deep dive and find out what really went on, because they claim, well, we went to the table, but that additional money had nothing to do with Mr. Broussard.
All right.
Mark DeBosier puts, after we have the meeting, but even before the meeting, they come to the table, and that's what Kevin Davis was telling the district attorney. Y'all came to the table. We went to FEMA. FEMA obligated additional money for contract work, which right here, a version, which is like a change order, amount totaling $410,000, $187.60 for contract. But you just read where the judge said,
I have not seen anything like that. The 204,
right?
He said all of the record was reflective of just this 204.
Exactly. And he goes on to say that this additional money was for additional contract debris.
Yes.
And force account labor and equipment to burn the debris that I was removing. And it was to be done.
Can you turn it a little more this way?
And it was to be done at he has 63, but it was 67 GPS sites. So the point is, that they went to FEMA. They had all the documents they needed. They kept telling the judge, Your Honor, we can't go to FEMA. And we talked to them, but FEMA said, well, they never could get that approved. Now all of a sudden they're saying, we went to FEMA. I mean, y'all requested it. We went to FEMA. GOSAP saying, we went to FEMA on your behalf. We got you additional money. And it's understood y'all had the contract. And Mr. Broussard do that debris, plus y'all didn't give the money to him. And it said that y'all took the money and did work that wasn't even on the map.
On the map, yeah.
It wasn't on the map.
Go point out where, or can you?
Yeah, I can point that out.
Well, I guess if it wasn't on the map.
So bottom line, this is the most southern point. We have where in depositions where the superintendent, John Rehan, saying that all of Indian Bayou all the debris in Indian Bayou was eligible. That the FEMA PW covered everything in the bayou, including the Army Corps of Engineers wetland permit.
Wow. Okay.
Now, here's a picture of the drainage district's workers in an article with them working. And the media there took a picture of them from the bridge. Now the bridge is by Parkside Marina.
Okay.
And they're talking about, and they admitted in depositions that they cleaned all the way to the mouth of Indian Bayou.
All right.
So the point is Kevin Davis said, if y'all took that money and did anything beyond those GPS sites, people's gonna have questions about that.
Yes.
Because y'all reported to us that all that work, we were talking about collusion, y'all reported to us that all that work was done at the GPS sites.
At the GPS sites on this map.
On this map. So here's a picture of them working, just to say, let's just say a mile or two off the map.
Wow.
So the thing is I would say that's a form of fraud. I'm not an attorney, but the thing is you ask yourself, how in the world did they get this packaged up, and with all the checks and balances, the monitors there, everybody, and you remember what Moore said? No, it had to be, the work had to be done at those GPS sites because Dan Kennedy
signed off
on it. Like I said, I've never met Dan Kennedy. What's important about the issue with Dan Kennedy lives somewhere about here.
Ah, okay.
Somewhere off this street here.
Okay.
From what I understand, he lived there around the time of 2006.
All right.
When they had this big flood, I mean, people are going to think, I mean, you can't, like I said, you can't make this stuff up.
Well, let me just say this. Talking about the GPS sites that are way away, and you reference that photo, that would lead us into the email that we have repeatedly provided links to. But
I want you to read that now. Before that way they go, well, who's Dan Kennedy? Dan Kennedy's the FEMA guy. Dan Kennedy, here's the bayou. Dan Kennedy lives right here.
Oh, okay, let me zoom in.
Off of...
Oh, I never got a good...
Ormond, I think it's Ormond. It makes it like a big horseshoe.
So where that balloon is, that's where, okay.
That's where he lived.
All right.
So,
and here I saw the bayou too.
You're right. The bayou's here. This is it's supposed to be the south end. This is on the north end where it stopped. Called Little Indian Bayou. FEMA guy lives right there. From what I understand, his area.
Well, since he was so close, let me ask you this, Billy. Why didn't he? You say you never saw him.
No, I never saw him. I talked to him one time. I remember when we had the additional debris, I did talk to him at one point. He said, Billy, I'm sorry, I talked to him during the project at one point. He said, Billy, whatever happens, all I can say is we can just testify to what happened if it ends up in litigation.
All right.
And that was it.
All right.
Another time I talked to him, I have to say, is when I subpoenaed him. I was subpoenaing him to come to court for something, even though restitution and quashed those subpoenas. I subpoenaed him, and interesting, he said he was the FEMA guy. I assumed he was the FEMA guy. Everybody says, well, Dan Kennedy's the FEMA guy. And on top of that, interesting, right after this project was finished, from the next time I talked to him, when I'm trying to find him, that's when I found out where he lived. When I was trying to subpoena him, I found out he lived right there by the bayou. But on top of that, he was no longer working for FEMA. He was then working for a company called Witt Associates.
Oh, okay.
Witt Associates is the same company that GOSAP had contracted that this guy worked underneath. The monitor.
Okay. All right.
So it makes you wonder, wait a minute, you're going back from the government to the private sector. So his next big check apparently was, I'm leaving FEMA and I'm going to work for Witt Associates.
All right.
Because if I remember how I had to get in touch with him, I ended up on the phone with Witt Associates and they patched me through to him.
All right.
And he gave me his address for me to subpoena him.
Now, you had wanted me to read this. You want me to put
yes,
on hold?
The only other thing I want to say, in the article that everybody can pull up, water everywhere.
Water everywhere, just Google it.
Yeah. By the second page, it shows all the streets
Okay.
that flooded.
All right.
Interesting, one of those streets is the same street that Dan Kennedy lives off of.
Okay.
So at that point I knew, I said, wait a minute, we got some serious problems. So, he probably shouldn't have had no part of this project since he lived in the area that was heavily congested. And I'd like you to read the date of that email, but also who that email was sent from and to.
Sure. This is an email from Kelly Fontenot. All right. And it is sent on Wednesday, May the 20th, 2009 at 10:32 a.m. It is sent to Billy Crabb and also Dan Kennedy, and it's copied to Fenton Dean and John Rion. And the subject is the scope of work for the Gravity District 8 Little Indian and Indian Bayou. And here's what the email says. It says, with all of the issues that we have had with this contract, the state is now throwing in another wrench. They are now of the opinion that we have over $38,000 of the original $102,000 invoice that relates to work that is not included in the scope of work in the original PW. The GPS locations do not match up. While we received payment for 90% of the request that they now want to give them approval to correct the $38,000 or bring it to zero until we fix the scope issues. Obviously, that is not going to happen with my blessing. Is there anything that can be done short of writing another version that would require approval to even write? Remember how long the last version took to get the state's approval to write before FEMA could do anything about it. It apparently does not matter that the state had monitors there during the process and there was much more debris to be removed. Let me repeat, there was much more debris to be removed. It appears that this PW is stalled until a new version is written to recap everything that has happened. I thought version 1 was going to handle that, but apparently it did not go far enough to satisfy the state. We need those GPS locations to go away.
Now, that's the two very important people, Dan Kennedy and Billy Crabb. Dan's supposed to be FEMA. Dan Kennedy's supposed to be the one, and I got the emails that the GOSAP guy is on the project. He's answering to. I got the email, some emails back and forth to them. The GPS sites that they're talking about need to go away were marked by their GOSAP guy.
Kurt Harmon?
Kurt Harmon. I never had a GPS. I don't even know how to mark a site for GPS. Bottom line, Kurt Harmon is the one who marked those sites. So the thing is, what she's talking about, they need to go away through a public urgency request. Kelly Font those documents. I got where we had provided them the invoice. Mr. Larry Warren providing them an invoice and all the additional sites that were removed. I have to say between burn site 3 and 2. It was all what was in the FEMA PW on the calculation sheets. They were all. This is what they're talking about. The map that FEMA puts together, the calculation sheets. So all the GPS sites that were between burn site 3 and 2. We marked those, and then we put all the additional sites that the GOSAP guy on the project identified.
Okay.
But right here, you can barely make it out, but it says state disallowed all the additional, it's kind of hard to read GPS sites, not in the original PW.
All right.
So the point is they're saying it's not eligible. FEMA PW version 1, the version, not the original PW, the version didn't even capture the additional sites.
All right.
So you go, what was the version for? The version was for, as in their request, 3 times the debris. And they were reporting at that point that all the debris was at the GPS sites. They just said, we have additional debris, but it's at the GPS sites. It didn't go far enough. But even though it gave additional money for additional contract work, which I never seen, the judge said apparently he never seen it. But on top of that, they're saying the state, she's saying the state is the one throwing the wrench in there, and the state is the opinion, and the state saying these GPS sites, they're not in the PW.
Okay.
What I found, so the state's aware of it, first of all. The state knows that's the work that was done.
Okay.
And you got to remember, I've done this job in part. My part was to remove the debris. Their job was, they were ordering and directing the debris. So whatever debris that was not eligible, all these monitors and all these people running the clock, if I'm out there supposedly doing work that's not eligible, then the time that they're turning in, wait a minute, if I'm not supposed to be doing this work, how are you getting paid to monitor this?
Boy, that's an excellent point.
Right. So there's these GOSAP people that are actually contractors of GOSAP. Apparently they're running the clock for themselves.
Sure.
And the forced account labor and equipment it took to burn the debris. My job was to put it on the barges. I got pictures. Put it on the barges. Bring that debris to the bank. Hand it off to the parish. And the parish is going to burn it. So if I'm only supposed to remove originally 950 cubic yards, if I removed, just to say 10 times that amount, they're out there monitoring it, 10 times the debris, they're out there burning all this debris, forced count labor and equipment, all this stuff, if that was only supposed to be 1/10 of that, then all of the worksheets that they turned in for forced count labor and equipment for the Indian Bayou project, the gravity drainage district did, then well maybe 90% of that wasn't eligible.
Whoa.
Because if it wasn't eligible for me to remove, I'm doing it in part, it wasn't eligible for them to be running the clock, to be disposing of, burning of it, etc.
Ah.
So in that, we go, well, wait a minute, y'all running, y'all getting paid for that. If Mr. Broussard shouldn't have been doing it, y'all shouldn't have been handling that debris and building it back to FEMA.
And again, to emphasize, you only did this because it had been marked and you were instructed to remove this.
Right, and yes, and I mean, these sites that they're saying we need to make go away, saying the state's throwing a wrench in it, as far as I know, it was the state guy, the GOSAP guy with the Louisiana seal, he's the one marking them. So if he's marking them, ordering them to be removed, and then the state on the back end saying, wait a minute, now when it says state, I'm thinking it's the legislative auditor's office. Because they're embedded in GOSAP's office, and they have to make sure all these, when the applicants, like the drainage district, turn in everything, they have to make sure everything checks out.
Yeah.
Like he said, like Mr. Moore had said, all that debris was done at those GPS sites. And the reason we know that is because Dan Kennedy signed off on it.
Right.
And Billy Crabb is aware of what's going on. Kurt Harmon's aware. They had another Freddie Gardner. You should see the communication I got between Kelly Fontenot and some of these people.
All through public records.
When she talks about her blessing, and it's not going to help her blessings. I don't know what kind of voodoo she was putting on these men, but they would come running like hound dogs to her office as soon as she snapped her fingers.
Okay.
Trying to help her, I'm going to use the word collude, to get this all to go through. So
Right.
I find, we know this is her document. I got this document from her office. They wrote state disallows. She's saying right there, state's throwing a wrench because these GPS sites don't add up.
Okay.
I found interesting, we had a contract with the drainage district. Everybody says that the drainage district and the police jury, Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, that's two separate entities. Look at this, a purchase order from the police jury. Now, LA checkbook, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
You're gonna find through, you can just see through LA checkbook what are the monies being spent on. If you just took their purchase order, and everybody said, well, let's see. Let's look at the purchase order. $204,000. $204,000. And where I find that the LA checkbook is not going to catch certain things is in the description. Okay, what did the $204,000 pay for? Even though all this work is being done, all these additional sites, I believe this was to make those GPS sites go away. They couldn't come to us and say, come to find out, yeah, none of those additional sites were eligible. I truly believe, could be wrong, but a purchase order was put together, and it just says, under description, contact person, John Rion, his cell phone number. And it just puts complete as per all bid specifications.
All right.
So the point is if you're the legislative auditor, now the legislative auditor or whoever at the state said these GPS sites don't add up. This was apparently sent to the state. The state looks at it and goes, wait a minute, this don't add up. The project's finished. They go, okay, this don't add up. And then somebody sends this in, they go, all right, now everything adds up. Well, come on, man. If you failed, and you have to rewrite the PW to capture everything that really happened, and you're now, you're the auditor. I mean, if you audited before, they said, and you look at it and go, none of this is adding up. And they go, no problem, what you think about this? Would this pass? And you go, yeah, guys, good. Now, I find they're also their fingerprints on it, because at one point the state was saying, no, this is not adding up. So I have a lot of questions about, I never had the opportunity to ask about this purchase order, but I find that strange, because that can make it add up, just how to make the GPS sites go away. So I know this is long, but I want the constituents in Moss Bluff to be aware, including other people, to know what actually happened on this project. Because what happened in the litigation, what was produced through us, to us during discovery, and compare that to the deliberative process, two total different stories.
Well, I want to ask you on that now. You reached the point that you had to represent yourself in court. And of course, we've published before that the judge said, you were going to bully your way, you filed this illegal lien, you had to make the correction that was Jeff Landry that filed that lien, which the judge basically said was an illegal lien. But the whole crux of the matter revolves around whether or not documents were withheld during the discovery process during which Governor Landry served as your attorney. And it's my understanding that that your way of trying to get to the bottom of this was, in fact, to subpoena Jeff Landry. Can you elaborate as to? At
one point, and I have to say, I had Jeff, which is now our governor, Jeff Landry as our governor, and then is now our governor, and then I had Robin Sylvester that worked with him. And so I had started getting pieces of the puzzle. Okay. I didn't get more of the documents till like the more of the meat of it till later. But I knew, I said, wait a minute, they're talking about they need additional money for additional contract work. And the judge said, well, and there's a transcript, the judge said, well, maybe she meant project. Mm-hmm. You know, but I said, but John, it says we need additional money to do, just to say additional contract work. So at the time, I knew there was bits and pieces I was getting, not all of it. But in those bits and pieces, I reached out to him. I said, okay, Jeff, isn't it true you were never provided these documents? I mean, the judge said his reason for ruling. Right.
Like, I didn't see all this.
You didn't see it. And look, I have to say, I'm doing this to defend myself, but it also defends my attorneys. I truly believe my attorneys filed the lien properly. But the thing is I wanted to subpoena him because they were trying to say,
we gave it to you.
So saying, we gave you all this. Ben Bly, I got the affidavit. GOSAP's, just to say attorney, saying it was all available. If his attorneys didn't get it, that's their problem. But the truth is,
or if they're arguing he got it, they would probably more so say if he failed to utilize it as part of your case, that's on them, which would call into question Jeff Landry's legal skills if he did in fact get it.
And I to this day don't believe that. Because I don't believe he would have done something like that. I don't believe that. But they arguing, we gave all this to your attorney. And I will say, you remember, there's documents out there that they're going to report me to the FBI.
Oh yeah.
You know, that there was criminal activity that I had done. Anything that they give Rusty Stoots, we can provide a link. Rusty Stoots put this letter together. First it was a threat when I was asking for public records request that he was going to report me to the FBI, and I'm like, please do. I don't even know what you're talking about. What I did that was criminal, that FBI or any investigating agency would be able to find any wrongdoings. I didn't do anything wrong. But he, in another letter, lists everything, the restraining, the lien, which right here. Jeff and them filed, my attorney at the time, Jeff Landry, they filed the lien. Mm-hmm. Well, he assumes that was fraudulent by filing the lien. Mm-hmm. That was a crime, some sort of crime. And then there's a couple other lists of other things that anything that had happened that was in the list that he claims that we committed crimes would have happened during the time of discovery on our end where we had to produce. Mm-hmm. And it was just things because they said, we need to get to the bottom of costs incurred. They were saying that costs incurred, in the definition of costs incurred, was my actual cost. And I remember Rob and Sylvester arguing, no, it's based upon the contract, it's y'all costs incurred that FEMA needs. So the judge was like, oh no, it needs to know all your costs. So they went through all of that. So I had to build the firm told me, build these spreadsheets. So I built these spreadsheets, built one spreadsheet, then built it another way, based upon what FEMA pays for certain pieces of equipment, just all these different things. And then he turns around and says that I was trying to use it to fraud him, apparently. But that was stuff that you'd have to ask my attorneys, well, why did you as a witness, why did Billy produce this? Or why was this produced during discovery? Because I went to them with the matter, my grievances saying, what do I do? You're my attorneys. They filed the lien. So when the judge later is mocking me saying, you filed that illegal lien, that's why I said, well, Jeff Landry filed that lien.
Right.
But the thing is, now the evidence supports a completely different story. Mm-hmm. In my humble belief, and I'm not an attorney, I believe he did take the proper steps. The problem is we didn't have all the evidence that I have now. So I'm defending him. The truth of the matter is he did file a proper lien. And all this list of things that Rusty Stoots claims that we did illegally.
Emphasis on the word we there.
Yeah.
Meaning
Bring
you
it.
and
Yeah, me and my
Governor
attorneys.
Landry, right.
So the point is bring it. Call the FBI, do whatever you want to call state police. Why didn't state police in their investigation find that we did anything illegal? Because we didn't. But the problem is if none of this, what I was saying is true, that they didn't come, maybe they could have said, you just trying to fabricate the story that we went to FEMA and got it, you know, and that money was for you. That money, and you know, even though they made the argument in court, the money had nothing to do with me. You heard what the judge's reason for ruling.
Yeah.
So now it's a completely different story, and my belief is, and other attorneys might say it doesn't matter, it still wasn't proper. I don't know, but all I'm saying is, if we would have had the evidence that we have now, bottom line, it would have been a completely different outcome. That's why the judge said, I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because that's why I ruled the way I ruled, because it was only $204,000. What's interesting, since we're talking about my then attorney Jeff Landry, who's now our governor, this project was all closed out back in 2012.
The whole project?
No, not the project. They call it the closeout. November 29, 2012, by Mark DeBosier. Even though after Mark DeBosier comes back with a chronology document, emails it to Ben Plyer, Broussard's attorney, right before he knows he's about to walk out the door, to try to make this right. That, hey, I closed out on this, but he puts in this chronology document things, including meeting with the district attorney, which
And we'll provide
state
a link
police
to
was
the-
there, and I don't think I ever got to it. State police never did, after that meeting with state police, with Michael Hebert, everybody walks out of the meeting. I ran into Michael Hebert in the hallway. I said, are you going to supplement your report?
And he said,
He said, no, I am not. And I was like, what do you mean? Everything that we just got this meeting together, and it's completely information contrary to everything you looked at before and everything that's in your previous report. Why wouldn't state police supplement this report? Because all the work that was put into this, Senator Mills, all these people. And eventually it was told to me, including who now is my sheriff, Beckett Bro. I ran into him, he was running for sheriff at the time. I said, Beckett, what happened? Why won't state police supplement my report? He said, look, when district attorneys tell us to stand down,
stand down.
Stand down. So that's a big problem. There's a bill right now, 122.
Senate Bill 122.
Senate Bill 122. And bottom line, the district attorney, even though he represents these people and he represents this drainage district, there was information to prove what really caused this flooding, but yet he tells them after the evidence comes to light, even though his attorney knows what the scope of work was for, his attorney, Klein Smith, sat in court hearings. Judge even asked him one time, are you here on behalf of the district attorney's office? No, sir, I'm not. So the point is, he sit there and watched them hang me. The district attorney just sat back, let them hang me.
And this would be the same district attorney who simultaneously was running basically a money laundering gift card program that has been brought attention to the state of Louisiana for its corruption. So is it any big surprise that John Rion would say,
John DeRosier.
I'm sorry, John DeRosier, thank you for catching that, would say, put the kibosh on this.
Exactly.
To Mike here.
But the thing is and he wanted at the end did some sort of survey to see how great he was of a district attorney. It's sad that all these people that flooded, he could have said, you know what really happened? Yeah. But he told state police, stand down. State police to this day has yet to give me my supplement report, which I'm hoping, which I've been in communication with Colonel Hodges, I'm hoping that they change their mind.
Well,
so,
and let me see if I can fairly summarize what happened here, and I mean 2 sentences. You talked about that people were so thrilled in 2009 that when the big downpours came and no flooding, that basically is the result of you having been cheated out of, give or take, $750,000.
No, it was $1 million. Jeff Landry right here.
But then are we netting it out?
No,
the amount that
the amount.
So this is above and beyond the 204. All right, my bad.
$1,153,000 is the way my attorney at the time, Jeff Landry, calculated. That's what he is, $1,153,000. So I got hold of the bag the way he calculated. So in saying that, you're exactly right. In 2009, they have a big flood. A big rain, and then it's like, we're going to test the work that was done. Did it work? So I apologize to you.
No, so basically, the lack of flooding is a result from you, and you know, forgive me, I'm using a polite word here, got screwed out of
Exactly.
approximately $1.1 million. So the residents in that area certainly owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude.
I truly believe that I have to say the work that we've done on that project, if that scope of work that was actually done is done throughout the drainage problem, with a lot of the drainage problems we have in the state, it would fix a lot of the problems. I could stand behind the work that we've done between Burnside 3 and up all the way to the north side of this project, and I have to say, we cleaned that bayou. I'm talking about we cleaned it. I can show you, I mean, pictures and all, but I mean, we're talking about John, even that's one thing John Rion said, and we can provide a report when he met with state police. He said there was, even though FEMA said there was 126 trees originally, when I'm telling you we pulled out, just to say, like John Rion said, thousands of logs. The bayou was so congested, but if you never maintain a bayou, ever.
And that was your point in your testimony, is that nobody wants to admit this, but one of the biggest reasons flooding's going on is the one word, neglect.
Neglect. And everybody wants to know, well, why are rates all going up? Why is my insurance rates going up? I'm not in a flood zone. I'm on a ridge along the Bayou Teche. I'm not going to flood. I mean, I'm proactive. I make sure there's no trees going to fall on my house. But everybody's now having to pay because FEMA's upping the rates. Everybody's having to pay because of these type of shenanigans going on.
I got you.
Because FEMA, you ask me, FEMA looks at it as a purse. It's our money. They let us put our hand in there, take it out to get us back to pre-disaster conditions in this matter. But they go, but you got to put it back. And the thing is it doesn't matter if you were just in that area or not. You can be in a completely different part of Louisiana. They raise the rates, and you got to put all that. I got to put money back into that purse, and everybody else does because of these type of shenanigans going on. And with all the checks and balances, and you heard the senator and Liz Muriel, the Attorney General, saying. We were trying to get answers from FEMA. Us, the congressional delegation, nobody can get answers to why FEMA is raising the rates. And the truth of the matter is, because of things like this happen, FEMA sees this. FEMA, the true people up in Washington, they see what's going on. And they don't trust us. And they go, no problem. If you're not going to hold your local municipalities responsible to do their work, then you know what? We're just going to have to up the rates because you're a high risk.
Yes.
So the point is I truly believe if more work is done and they're do their proper inspections, that this work is properly being done, it may eventually lower our rates. But where we're at right now, my God, I know I'm paying a fortune in insurance, and everybody else is, because of these type of shenanigans. So in closing, I truly believe the other big issue that involves our state at this time, interesting, talk to the different people. The end of last year, John B. Edwards is still the governor. Hurricane, even though it was signed off in 2012, the FEMA PW, they still have the Hurricane Rita disaster declaration is still open.
Still open, okay.
It was still open. They didn't close it out, from what I understand. He left it open. Now, I would have thought he would have liked to have said, my administration closed that out. Even though it's my understanding, they had it all packaged, ready to close out. Just sign off on it, it's done. And they leave it and drop it in the lap.
Drop it into Jeff Landry's lap.
It hit Jeff Landry's lap. So now Jeff Landry's got to sit there and go, okay, y'all want me to sign off on it. Why y'all didn't just sign it? You're that close. But I have to say, this particular project, knowing, and Jeff Landry told me, you asked me if they committed fraud? Yes, they committed fraud.
Now that was a direct quote from your attorney at the time with regard to what happened in this project.
It was after he was running for office at the time, for one of the offices he ran for.
Either congressman or
he was beyond Congress, and he said,
well,
and he was talking. He said, you asked me
if they, Attorney General then.
You asked me if they committed fraud? Yes, they committed fraud.
That's why I'm running. Okay.
That's why I'm running. So he knows there was fraud. It was out of his own mouth on this project.
Okay.
So now he has the Hurricane Rita disaster declaration with this project in it.
Okay.
Knowing there was fraud.
Okay.
That puts him in a serious pinch. Our now governor, who was my attorney that knows that there was fraud, if he would have signed off, just like Dan Kennedy signed off, just like other people signed off on this project, put it this way, Kelly Fontenot, right here, it was typed out for Kelly Fontenot to sign it. Kelly Fontenot, she's not an idiot. She scratched out her name and put for John Rion to sign it for When I questioned Kelly Fontenot on the stand, when I did have her there, when they put the restraining order on me because she was the victim, she went up there. I said I made her read some of her own notes. They never was ready for me to say I'd like to offer and introduce the entire file, and I want to question the witness. First, I said I want to question the witness. Rusty Stutes almost cut a flip. So when Rusty Stutes almost cut, I mean, he was nervous. So I started questioning. The judge said he has the right to question the witness. So I started questioning the witness. She said, John Rion, and from what I remember right, John Rion signed off on this. That I like, hey, I didn't sign that. But it puts our now governor and his administration in a pinch that if they sign off on this, knowing that this type of behavior went on, I had a meeting at his office when he was the Attorney General with then who's now the Honorable Bill Stiles. Bill Stiles said, do you have evidence that Mark DeBosier knew everything that he now knows when he signed off on this? Because that would be a major crime. So I'm trying to prevent my now governor, who was the attorney for me, I'm trying to prevent him from having his signature or his administration signing off on this type of shenanigans. So I'm hoping that just like Kelly Fontenot said, the state saying we need to reopen, we need to rewrite the PW. It needs to properly be rewritten on what actually truly happened, because there's too many people that know that, and there's too many depositions, etc., and evidence to support that work was not just done at those GPS sites.
Okay, and I want to say one last thing, and then you can have the closing statement. With regard to these letters, well, email and letter from Rusty Stutes, it's pretty common practice for attorneys to threat, and to make threatening statements, although I would say he carries it to the extreme in saying that he'll report your fraud to the FBI. Those are his words, not mine. But what is really disturbing about that is that's if you don't back off of making public records requests. If Rusty Stutes had evidence that you had committed fraud, as an officer of the court, he has an obligation to go to the FBI with that, and it is certainly not contingent upon whether or not you back off of public records requests. So except, first of all, you can take it to the bank. That's a threat. It's a veiled threat that has no backing to it. He was trying to intimidate you. But secondly, you should have gone to the FBI with what you say you have. Right. And it's not a function of, I want to do this if you don't back off a public records request. So I'm sure that Rusty Stutes never envisioned that these letters could be so easily put out on the internet. And I have tried I've directed as many times as possible folks to those letters, because I want everybody to make sure these letters are there for good, okay? But I'm sure he never had any envisions that the attorney representing you would one day not only become Attorney General, but now would hold the highest office in this state.
I don't think he figured that out. And I doubt seriously he thought that he would have to turn around and have to sign off on this.
Probably not.
So
Billy, you can do the final wrap. Folks, we normally try to keep these things 20 to 25 minutes, but I told Billy the floor was his today. We made no effort to curtail any time. For those of you who have taken the time to look at all of this, I want to thank you. We've got more features coming up. But this was the Billy Broussard show, because I had placed in there that when Billy Broussard had the documentation, which he said he did, to back up what he was saying, he was not joking. And I think anyone would have a tough time challenging the fact that you have extensive documentation. And here's the important thing. I mean, right now public records are at the forefront, and unfortunately we're having an effort by our current governor to block them. That's kind of inexplicable, because without the ability to get public records, you wouldn't be able to demonstrate everything you've demonstrated here today.
Exactly. And I mean, in part of this, I'm proving me and or my attorney, then Jeff Landry and Robinson, didn't do anything criminal. And this whole thing about Rusty Stutes threatening me, about the FBI, etc. Find it interesting, when state police did their investigation, who walked in there with John Rion? Now, John Rion's being questioned by state police about a crime he may have committed against the drainage district.
In fact, Michael Hebert said, we need to read you your rights. Now, he ultimately didn't. He didn't read his rights, but he said, look, I really need to read you your rights. So go ahead, continue.
And look, my memory, I think he read them. But it was
I'm
later.
sorry. Okay.
I think it was much later.
Much later, okay.
But
well, he should have read them right off the outset.
But interesting, Rusty Stutes, he's a character. He walks in there and he says, we the attorneys, Rusty Stutes and Kimby Avenue, represent John Rion. I didn't know Kim was an attorney. I knew she worked for him. Kim, I have to say, is interesting. Like you asked me before, isn't Jeff Landry, you and Jeff Landry cousin? Yes, we're second cousins. But he has a first cousin that Kim's married to.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with Kim's husband, which is my second cousin also, doing disaster cleanup.
Oh, okay.
Other parts, not this project, but other projects. So he's very familiar. I worked underneath him. He was very familiar with disaster cleanup. So I find it interesting. He brings Kim in there, the avenue with him, saying they represent John Rion. How can you represent the drainage district? And then state police are asking him questions. I believe that's how nervous Rusty Stutes was.
Oh, okay.
And the truth of the matter is, I think he's used Kimby Avenue. Not more. I mean, in regards to, apparently that, I mean, it is. There's no secret. That is Jeff Landry's first cousin's wife.
I got you.
And I truly believe he used her. I mean, you saw the text messages, the emails he accidentally sent me where he told her.
Yeah, we'll provide a link to the Sneak a Smooch feature.
Yeah, maybe she could sneak
I mean, what a heck of a thing to put in an email. Yeah,
exactly. To try to sneak a smooch from me in the conference room. My point is that's how much of anybody that knows him, he's a very arrogant fella. But on top of that, I hope now, even though people say, oh, Jeff Landry, he's a second cousin. We're not close. This has really messed up our relationship that we did have. Mm-hmm. It's also messed up our relationship I had with Marty, which was Kim's husband, through this.
Okay.
And it's sad because of the fabrication of this whole case. And Rusty Stutes claims all this evidence that was provided. So the truth is, he made an argument, even though he claims he gave all this to my attorney, he made a completely different argument to the court of what really happened. But I just hope that, that at this point, he's not trying to use politics of some sort of connections to Jeff now to, hey, no, keep, we got this covered up, keep it covered up. Because I got this information through public records, and I think now I'm going to expose it, which I'm doing today, so the people of Calcasieu know what really happened and why they truly flooded. And if they have any questions, they can find me, Billy at billybroussard.com. You can find me on the internet, I have a tree service out of Lafayette, Louisiana. I don't mind answering anybody's questions, but I think the day has come that it puts some serious pressure on our now governor, that Angosap that's there now, that they can't close out on this till it was, like Kelly Fondo said, we're going to have to rewrite this PW to capture everything that really happened. So that's my prayer, my hope. And this would have been a lot easier if I've been able to just provide a supplement report that state police should have produced. It's my understanding, it was my right, I was the victim in that. I asked for a supplement report, they refused to do it. So I'm still working on seeing if I can get my hands on that. If I ever get my hands on that, I will provide that to the audience that, hey, state police finally agreed that they're going to give me my supplement report, because I think at this point, not doing it is aiding and abetting this type of behavior.
I got you.
I'm hoping to get my hands on that, and again, I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope that people from there reach out to their congressman, maybe Higgins or different ones, and say, we really want to know. We want to know exactly what happened, every number to properly be not just the dollar figure, but what really caused us our big flood in 2006. Sounds
great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Broussard, and to those who made it through this whole thing, or even if you divided it up, which I often do when I see a video's long, I'll watch a quarter and then come back and watch another quarter, and either way, whether you watched it all the way through or watched it in your own breaking points, we thank you, and we look forward to bringing you another Sound Off Louisiana feature in the very near future. Thank you once again.
Thank you.